Hello everyone, this is Gary from Fantastic Fundas, and today in this lecture we will be talking about the Indian National Congress. If you recall, we ended the last lecture talking about what last two lectures actually, that why there was need of so many what there was why there were so many tribal revolts, and then civil movement, peasant movement, and then the that growth of press, and finally formation of lot of organizations at that time, which we discussed in the last lecture. Now there was one of the most important organizations which we yet to discuss, which was made. It was the Indian National Congress, right? Now, before I tell you that what was Indian National Congress, how was it formed, I like to tell you about some important works which were done by, these are basically all pre-Congress campaigns that were already going on before the Congress came into being. Now, I'll just name the important ones, right? For example, all these organizations that were earlier made, they were talking about various things. Like they were talking about that import duty on cotton, import duty on cotton, okay, import duty on cotton. This should be removed, right? And then they then they wanted basically everything over here that comes over there that's going against the Lytton, right? So they wanted, because this was imposed, this they wanted to be removed. Then they wanted that civil services should be Indianized, right? Indianization or Indianization of the civil services, the more involvement of Indians. Then there was also Anglo-Afghan war at the time of Lytton only. So everyone said that these wars should be ended because it was leading to loss of human population and money, right? And then so many people were against so many acts. For example, there was one Arms Act, right? And then there was Ilbert Bill controversy. People supported Ilbert Bill, right? And then people also wanted to have a right to join volunteer corps, okay? So volunteer corps they wanted to join. And then number six, so see, these are the basic things which are happening before Congress comes into being. Obviously, I mean, I want to tell you the condition, what were our demands over here, okay? And then we were, against the Inland Immigration Act. Some act was there at that time. We were opposing Inland Immigration Act, okay? So no need to go into detail of all this, right? And then we were also supporting the this thing, the cause of the plantation labor, okay? We were against the British extreme policy. Then fine, we also talked about that the age for Indian civil services, this should also go up, okay? And that's the minimum age they are talking about. And fine, all these organizations that came to India before, like Congress was there, in general there was a support for a pro India party in Britain. See what is happening. Basically, a party in Britain, and this is the Labour Party. In Britain, also there were a lot of people who were supporting India. You just cannot deny this fact, okay? And just because we are associated with the Britishers, it doesn't make us the agent of Britishers. So many Britishers were actually from heart with Indians. There are historical facts, right? I'm not a historian as such, so I cannot dwell into the details of those things, but they exist if you go and study them, right? I have seen few of them. So yes, I have seen few letters, few telegrams. I have got few books which just talk about the letters exchanged between so many popular leaders. They give you the proof of everything, right? For okay, so in this background, but now all these things which were happening, they were spread. They were, that was not just under one organization, right? And so there was felt a need of some all India political organization, right? All India political organization, because a lot of people think that Britishers, in they made the organization for their purpose, but we were also needing this all India political organization, right? So, and all these organizations which came before Indian National Congress, they all were very limited, right? They had a very limited scope, limited objective. So many things were limited in their concern, okay? Now all this led to development of basic needs and objectives of the leader. So Indians, there was huge question of the unity of Indians, right? and that will actually become the focus of the Congress later on when I talk to you about the purposes, the immediate objectives of the Congress. Okay, so that is how it all was going on. Okay, and then how it all starts, that it all starts through this the formation of a Congress. Okay, now we are talking about that, now how basically the Congress is being formed, right? So the formation of Congress is beginning with in 1885 there is a Britisher, his name is Alan Octavian Hume. This person is a retired civil servant, and he had lot of love, genuine love for India. Okay, and that's not me saying that, that's there in history. You cannot contradict this fact because it is there. Okay, and how do you get to know this? Through his actions only you can get to know this, right? Now Alan Octavian Hume, right, he publishes this thing which is called Appeal from the People of India, right? It's called Appeal from the People of India, right? Appeal from the People of India. Okay, now in this basically he writes this to people in Great Britain and Ireland. Okay, and Ireland, that's where he's writing this letter, and in this appeal, right? And in this appeal he's asking the Britishers that the British voters to support those candidates who are sympathetic to Indian demands. Now tell me, isn't Alan Octavian Hume supporting the cause of Indians? He is asking the people of Britain to vote for the people who support Indians. Now this way, so there was but then this appeal was not of much use, and major issue at that time were many issues raised, right? As I talked about taxation and Afghanistan campaign and all those things were there. Okay, so ultimately, when all in this background, Congress comes into being. Okay, and how Congress comes into being when all this is going on, right? On 28 December 1885, 72 political workers, 72 people meet, and they meet at a place called this is important for your paper, Gokul Das Tejpal Sanskrit College. Okay, see, whenever you are reading history, the history of Congress, please do not get foolish, do not behave foolish by comparing it to the present day Congress. This is the great Indian National Congress, which almost has negligible relation left with the present day Congress. Okay, do not be emotional fool if you are a member of some other party or supporter of some other party. This is the party of the great leaders of India because of whom we got independence. Of course there were other people involved, but they also had a major role. Okay, so at all these people, they met over Gokul Das Tejpal Sanskrit College, and they formed Indian National Congress. Okay, and initially there were just 72 political workers. Imagine how it is rising. In 1886 there are 436 workers, and by 1889 there are 2000 plus workers. Okay, so that is how the Congress is growing very fast, right? And the first session of Congress this is held at Govalia Tank. This was supposed to be held in Pune, but there the plague is there, and because of that this meeting is held in Govalia Tank. It's a place in Bombay. Govalia Tank, right? Then when the Congress was made, in their first session, they adopt a resolution, right? When you meet, what do? You pass a resolution. We'll do this, we'll do that, or we condemn this, we appreciate it, right? So they passed a resolution in which they expressed the dissatisfaction, and dissatisfaction of what, of the current system of governance, and they demanded the reforms in council, right? So they were dissatisfaction with the governance system, plus council reform was their demand, and in fact this becomes one of the primary reasons that after this, that Dufferin, he establishes a committee for reforms in India, right? Lord Dufferin, and that results into the formation of the Indian Council Act of 1892, about which I'll talk to you about in the next lecture. Now this act basically introduces a principle of self-representation in India, just to tell if you are still curious about this act. Okay, now this was the first organized expression of Indian nationalism. We know this on the all India scale, right? And this A.O. Hume, right, he plays a great role. And in fact, when the Congress is made in the first session, then what happens is in 1885 only, right? The W.C. Banerjee is right. Vomesh Chandra Banerjee or Banerjee, whatever you want to say, and Vomesh Chandra Banerjee. And this meeting, of course, as I told you, was held in Bombay, right? And at this time, this person, what's his name, Alan Octavian Hume, A.O. Hume, he is appointed, right, as the general secretary. Okay, he is the general secretary, and of course Banerjee is the president, right? And then there were a few additional British members also at this time, of the Indian National Congress. And who were these people? Number one was William Wedderburn, right? And the number two, it's an important name actually, it just might be asked in your paper. And Justice John Jardine, okay, Justice John Jardine. So that is how the Congress is being made, right? And then there were a lot of important Indian leaders also at that time, right? I'll just give you few first sessions, okay? Right here is the session number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, and let me tell you top 8, 7, 8, right? And the first one, as we had already talked about it, but it's W.C. Banerjee, and this was in 1885, right? And this continues like this way, moves only 86, 87, then 88, 89, 90, 91, and 92, right? I'll talk to you about these are important sessions. That is why we are doing it. And the first meeting with this was at Bombay, right? W.C. Banerjee, we have done his name. Second person was over here was Dada Bhai Nauroji. Nauroji, okay. And this session was at Calcutta, Bombay, Calcutta, Madras. This is how you said, Bombay, Calcutta, Madras, Delhi, Calcutta, Bombay, Calcutta, Madras, okay. Bombay, Calcutta, Madras, BCM, right? So who's the head of this? The head at this time was Badruddin Tayyabji, okay, Badruddin Tayyabji, right? Now there were a few Britishers also at this time head of Congress, and for example, George Yule was there, right? And then Wedderburn was there. There was a question once in UPSC on the Wedderburn, and George Yule was there in Allahabad. And then finally, again the meeting comes back to Bombay, and so it's over here, right? Bombay, okay, Allahabad, and then back to Bombay. So it's Bombay, Calcutta, Madras, right? And Allahabad and Bombay. Now, after this, after Wedderburn, there is an important meeting. This is by Firoz Shah Mehta is the head of this. Firoz Shah Mehta is a very important moderate leader. I'll talk about him later on also, right? So that was in this meeting was in Calcutta, okay, and that's 1890, right? And just two more people. Anand Charlu was there. He was the head at Nagpur session, of not of much importance exactly, right? But what is important is that again over here is the W.C. Banerjee again becomes the president of the Indian National Congress in 1892, and this time the meeting is in Allahabad. Okay, you don't have to remember everyone, but these are the important ones, because question is often asked about these Indian National Congress presidents and the cities where they were held in the beginning years, okay, or their question on the women. With that I'll talk to you about later on, okay. There were many other prominent leaders of the Congress at this time. For example, right, sooner or later some of them became the presidents of Congress. There was Tilak, there was Shishir Kumar Ghosh, right, whatever you can name. There was Madan Mohan Malviya, or Subramaniam Iyer was there, okay. M.G. Ranade, his organization was one of the most successful organizations of the period, right? It was, in fact, most of the organizations, you will find that they were not really successful before Congress. Ranade was very successful, okay, M.G. Ranade, right? And if you remember, he made that Pune Sarvajanik Sabha was by M.G. Ranade, quite popular, right? Anyway, right, and then there was also Dinshaw Vacha was there. It's an important name of important leader. He's the moderate leader, okay. Why are we calling them moderates? I will tell you about that, because of their method of working. But these are important moderate leaders, okay. Their way of fighting Britishers is not extreme, and they actually did not need those methods at all. Anyway, right. So, and there was another important leader of the Britishers. If we talk about the female ones, it was Kadambini Ganguly, right, and she attends the Congress session in 1890. She's not the president then, she just attends the session, okay. And in fact, she was one of the 6 female delegates to the 5th session of the National Congress, and she addressed the session also. That is why it is important, right. and her presence was symbolic of a representation of the woman, right? The female position in the Indian National Congress, right? And she was the actually she was the first female to be to to have got training in Western sciences, okay, right. Uh, um, okay, in European medicine, okay, first female to be European sciences or medical sciences, right? And first female in South Asia, not just India. And then she was the first female physician for that matter, okay. And she was the first female graduate, she was the first female grad of Calcutta University, okay. Calcutta University. And right. And her there was another friend of hers who was also very active. Her name was Chandramukhi Basu. See, these nothing can much can be done, you have to remember these facts, right? You don't have to remember every fact. There might be names of hundreds of women, but you have to remember just very few ones, okay. Now they established the women organization, right? She actually, Kadambini Ganguly, right, which was known as the Bhagalpur, okay, let me put it here, Bhagalpur Mahila Samiti, Bhagalpur Mahila Samiti. She forms that, right? In that is in year right. Okay, I just probably that was in 1863. I'm not sure. 1863, right? It was, but the first women organization, right? And then so such things were going on, okay. So this is how the Congress has been made, right? Now after this I'd like to talk to you about the aims and objectives of Congress. Now Congress has come into being, but it will have some aims and objectives. What can those be? It is a very simple question that just might be asked in your paper. Now you just have to imagine, if there is a new organization made, what would it do? If there is a case of new organization, what would it do? So let's talk about it, right? So the aims and organizations were include, like, they had to found a democratic nationalist movement. So why democratic? Because so that the more people are involved, and it's the people who take the decision and not just the party, right? Unlike today. And popular education was their focus, right, of these people. Number 3, their focus was to have headquarter. They were not having headquarter, it was just a small group initially. And then they wanted to have friendly relation among political workers. So this is important, this is right out of NCERT, these words, friendly relations amongst political workers, because they were having different culture, caste, language, religion, so they had to be united, right, among different political workers. So they had to be united. And then their next aim was there was like having anti-colonial nationalist strategy. There was no strategy, so they wanted to have a clear cut laid down strategy now, right? Then comes number 6, and number 6 is they were having their aim was to unite people. In fact, NCERT dwells so much on the unity as the aim of the Congress, that is little surprising to me. But then that is surely that is of huge importance. They have given some, like, talked about this unity in some 60-70 words, which is a lot of words for a book like NCERT to develop on a topic. Now after this, there was a feeling of national unity in the people, right? That I just said, right? And then next thing was to nurture nationhood in people, right? You don't say that I'm from Punjab, or what is your identity? I'm a Punjabi, right? No, see, or I'm a Gujarati, I'm a Bihari, or whatever, Manipuri, Tamil, right? Whatever you want to say. But more important thing is that you have this concept of a nationhood here, right? And actually, if you've seen the movie Chak De India, in that movie, Shah Rukh Khan, asks all the team members, where are you from? Someone says from this state, that state. Just one person comes and says, I'm from India. So that is how it is, okay. And then they also wanted to get involved in the training, right? Training of the cadres, and moving off basically formation of the public opinion, okay. So these were the basic aims and objectives, very easy to remember. They would be aims and objectives of all the organizations that you can actually think of, okay. So now the question is about the safety wall theory. Basically, a lot of times, a lot of people have raised the question about the very formation of the Congress, that it was actually a British organization, right? It was working for the Britisher, but that is not the truth. It was not a British organization, okay. First of all, it's a myth. Please understand that. uh, it's a myth actually, this safety wall theory, right? The people who follow this theory, they say that Britishers wanted to, they prevent a union. Britishers wanted to avoid this thing which I'm writing here, and they wanted to prevent a union of intelligentsia, right? Intelligentsia. And second thing, they wanted to avoid and this union of intelligentsia and the peasantry, right? Because they both were troubled, and if they both get united, then the Britishers will have to leave India sooner or later, right? And other logic they give, number one is this, right? That they, that British wanted to avoid this, so they came up with this theory, and that they were avoiding this unity. And number two is that because it was started by Alan Octavian Hume, and because it involved Hume, right? It was started on the Hume's instructions. Actually, this is what on the different instructions by Alan Octavian Hume. That is what the people of this theory excuse. Then that is what they say, right? And that they also give a logic that because there was a revolution on the brink, there was a revolution about to happen, and so that to give a space, okay. See what is a safety valve? Safety valve. Suppose there is some device over here, okay, right? This is the device. Now this is the valve in it, right? Now what happens that it is filled with water, right? Now there is heat below it, okay. It is being burnt, right? There's a heat over here going on, right? It's being burnt. So when water rises, what will happen? This is a safety wall. What will happen? This will be pushed out, and what will happen, that it will just get out of the thing, and then steam will get out. Otherwise, if it doesn't happen, then this will burst. So this burst would actually mean, in our sense, this revolution. So this was safety wall just for the Congress also. What will happen, that Congress that independence movement or nationalist movement, or the mood of nationalism of the peasants, everyone, it will slowly fizzle away. To simply put, गैस निकल जाएगी उनकी, हवा निकल जाएगी, जो थोड़ा बहुत है उनके ऊपर दिमागों पे बोझ प्रेशर पड़ा था वो निकल जाएगा, right? Basically the pressure on their mind would be on the release, pressure on the minds of the Britishers, and of the burden of the this the rising demand of independence, that would be released, okay. So something on that line, right? Not these are not the exact words, okay, just to convey you the idea. Right. So this is how it goes. So they basically talk about this, that it was basically used by Britishers, and to avoid any kind of revolution, they use this idea of safety wall theory. But all this is utter nonsense. This is not true at all, okay. I will talk to you very soon. No, see, there are many reasons for this, okay. The people of India who made the INC, they were people of very high moral character and probity and integrity and honesty. So those kind of people, how can you not believe them? You may not believe Alan Octavian Hume, but you have to believe the Indians who supported. They were not British agents. They were not with Britishers. They were Indians, and they had proven their integrity, loyalty towards India through their earlier actions. So what more do you want, right? So this theory is utter nonsense, and right, this is not a true theory, okay. And see, there are many reasons actually, okay. For example, there is more reason. Now Hume also possessed sincere love for India, right? And its poor cultivators, I gave you the proof also, that he asked the people of Britain to support for that party in Britain which supported Indian cause, and that was the Labour Party, right? And then third thing was that see, INC basically represented the urge of it was the urge of politically conscious Indians. Even Indians were looking for an all India organization, right? There were many small organizations. Everyone in India was also looking for a small organization, okay. So I'll talk about this topic more when I just end this topic with the counter theory, okay. So I'll tell you why more it was not a safety wall theory, okay. The safety wall theory is not right. I'm giving you more reasons. Before I give you reason, like I'll just tell you about Lala Lajpat Rai, right? Lala Lajpat Rai. He talks about this the safety valve theory in this publication, Young India, in 1916. in which he accuses the moderate leaders, and they said they were the result. He used safety wall theory to criticize moderate leaders. But that Lala Lajpat Rai himself was an extremist leader, right? He was a revolutionary leader, but then the Congress might have had its own weakness, right? Of course, it had. Every organization would have it, but that doesn't mean that it is the British. It supported British, okay? And he just criticized this theory, that safety wall theory. He just used this theory. He said because of safety wall theory, the Congress was not able to achieve its objectives. That though the people of Congress were good, but because of that, the Congress was not able to achieve its objective. This has very little truth in it. This is not true, okay? Because of these reasons, right? Okay, so let's talk more about it. Now, see, first of all, please understand the formation of Congress was not a sudden event. It's not that someday, all people were sleeping, all of us, in the morning they rise on the 20th December and go and form the Congress on the invitation of A.O. Hume. It did not work that way, okay? It was like there was so much of political awakening during the 1860s, 70s. If you are in supporter of safety wall theory, then you are basically disrespecting Dadabhai Naoroji and all those people who gave the economic critique of Britishers, Raja Ram Mohan Roy and everyone, right? And see all the organizations over there. For example, we talked about British India Association, right? That basically was working for the zamindars only. So this association was not so successful, okay? And only Pune Sarvajanik Sabha, as I said earlier also, that was under Justice M.G. Rana Day, that was little successful, okay? This is somewhat successful. And then a lot of things, all these organizations came, but then all these organizations came were at local level. None of them was pan India, but all these organizations slowly getting stronger. Ultimately there was felt a need of one person, one organization who could unite, and that was the answer to the wishes of all the people, was the formation of the Indian National Congress. So how can it be said that it was the result of British? Now many a times question is raised, then why did people of INC support A.O. Hume? If that was the case, right? If he was a British, even if they were aware, why were they supporting? That is the largest logic given by people of safety wall theory. I'll answer that. See, if they wanted to use, let's say he was a British, let's suppose that, okay, he was using Indians, if we go by logic of Lala Lajpat Rai ji. See, if he was misusing Indians, right? So that was his perception, that he was using Indians. How would he use Indians if we don't want to be used? Suppose you want to use particular person, but then he is aware that what you are doing, so they will conduct their actions accordingly. You might yourself be getting used rather than using someone. You never know what will happen. So that is why it is said that if Britishers wanted to use Congress for their safety wall, as a safety wall, and so people of India, they wanted to use this opportunity, or let's say this A.O. Hume, as a lightning conductor. Through them, through him the electricity would pass through the country. Okay, so this proves, right, that the Congress leaders were, and then the later commitment of the Congress leaders after this also shows all their actions, right, and everything shows that that the Congress at that time was very committed to the cause. And then there is also one more theory which is given by the it's a theory of rival ambitions of elite, right? It's called some people say it was formed because there were the elites fighting them between themselves, the rival ambitions of elite. Now this again is a wrong theory, because ultimately everyone almost joined the Congress. Why will it be rival ambition if all are in Congress? Number one, right? Number two is, see, India was a nation making, okay? Now Indian aspirations which were there, and grievances, they all were reflected by a small section of educated middle class. Okay, so we were slowly getting united. There was a lot of disunity in the country. That is why it is being said that the India was a nation in the making at this time, right? Because we were getting united at that time, and all these educated middle class, all they represented the aspirations and the grievances of the middle class of everyone in India. Okay, and then also during all this while, see what is happening, that India was to be welded into a nation, okay? and with the formation of the Congress, the process of India becoming a nation had started, because before this there were British provinces, princely states, such things were there. Okay, and the early leaders, they were fully aware of this fact that India had just started to be one nation. Okay, so it all just began, right? And then Congress became slowly, Congress became a platform. It became a platform. It became organizer. Okay, platform, an organizer, and a symbol of a new nationalistic spirit. It became symbol of new spirit. People were now ready to fight. They had someone to look up to. Earlier, what will happen? Suppose someone is looking up to an organization, let's say Pune Sarvajanik Sabha. They will look up to Pune Sarvajanik Sabha, which is working in the Bombay area. What about the people of Bengal? Here, if Congress takes some actions, right, Indian National Congress, that will be working in Calcutta, Bombay, London, all over the world. That was happening. Okay, so that is how it is, right? The formation of the Congress is justified, and that's not real. That's a very false theory which is there of safety wall theory. Okay, that's actually imagination of few people. Okay, so now all this, right? Helps in formation of unity of the country. Congress helped in the process of formation of country, right? India was a country in making. It's a nation in making. Even today we are a nation in making. That's a topic of post-independence India in history. I will not talk it here. Okay. So in the early years, what is happening, that if you talk about all these people, so what were the demands of the Congress, right, when they came into being over here, right? Okay, so I'll talk about these demands. Okay, but then before that I would just like to tell you that there were few more people, right? There were Britishers who supported Alan Octavian Hume. See, every country will have a supporter and non-supporters, and A.O. Hume was against the British Empire, and he was also supported by few people. For example, he was supported by Wedderburn. I have already taken his name. Okay, Yule was there. He also became the Congress president for a year. And then there was another person. His name is Charles Bradlaugh. Now this question just might be there in your paper, because once there was a question on this person also, Wedderburn. Okay, so Charles Bradlaugh was there, right? All these people, and then he also tried to gain support of a lot of people, right? Even Lord Ripon's support was sought by A.O. Hume, though he did not get the support as he wanted. So many Britishers did not support A.O. Hume, which again shows that A.O. Hume was actually interested in India, right? So what were the earlier demands of the Congress when it came into India? Okay, demands of INC. See, what is happening is their main political demand was regarding the legislative councils. Okay, and this is, so finally there comes Council Act of 1992, and that also, in this they also play some role in passing of this Council Act. Okay, and they also wanted to separation of judiciary from the executive. That has been their consistent demand. Okay, they wanted that Arms Act should be repealed. Under this, Britishers could carry arms, but for Indians to carry arms, they had to seek the license, right? And then rising, they wanted that Indian volunteer forces should be raised, right? Indian volunteer force, this is one of the demand of the British Indian National Congress at that time. Okay, right? Now see, drain of wealth theory. So they wanted to stop drain of wealth from India to England. That was one of their main demand. And they wanted to lower down, or at least reduce, if not totally abolish, military expenditure. They were opposing huge military expenditure, and all the home expenditure, as that was called, which are used for the maintenance of the administration in India. Now they wanted the Britishers to promote the Indian industry. See, till now there is no demand of full independence. Up to this point, where there was very little demand of full independence, because no one really thought that Britishers, people were not 100% convinced that Britishers are going to harm us, right? It was not so obvious as it might seem to you today. So, we might think, oh, British rule was very bad, but how do you even realize? For example, government brings up with some policy, you don't even realize that what government's policy is bad for you. Okay, had there been realization, there might have been another French Revolution in India by now, if people were really understanding what is happening with them. Okay, see, women, look at the issue of women. Okay, women for so many years did not even. I'm just giving you an example to understand. Women for so many years in the worldwide, right? Not just Indian concept. Met this one lady once coming. I was coming from Jaisalmer to Delhi on the train. I met this lady from London. Right? She was a British citizen only, and she told me. She talked to me about how women in Britain even today, they are not realizing how they are being exploited by the men. Same goes to, we had like, women, best women can do is sit at home. So up to, if you talk to your family, at least that's happened in most of the general families. Okay, 2-3 generations back, you talk to, if they say someone is alive, right, someone's grandmother, great grandmother, even mothers, many of them, they would say it is fine that women should be at home, they should not be at work. Such things are there. Okay, so women are not even realizing what is going wrong with them. Same way, Indians were not realizing what is wrong, how wrong happening with them. For example, let's take an example of these backward classes. Now, backward classes were not even realizing that some wrong is being committed with them. That's true. That's still there. You go to Rajasthan, you realize this thing is there to certain extent. Okay, it's still there. Okay, that so many people are not even understanding. That is why Congress comes and make people aware of that. Yes, this is happening with you, and even the congressmen also realize that there's something wrong is happening with us. If you read that literature of that time, of the British era, for example, there have been books like the autobiography of an unknown Indian, right? Or Nirad C. Chaudhary has written that book, or so many literature books I have read on the pre-independence history era. And what I've realized, people were not really aware. People said, okay, we are very happy. God has given us whatever He wanted to give. We just want to live a normal life. So what I'm trying to tell you, that there was not even realization that something is wrong with us. So you cannot go and blame the Congress or any people of those times that they were wrong in their vision. If somebody was having the vision that Britishers are bad, that was because of their own personal issues. But not even those people were not having pan India realization. Okay, so that is how it was. Okay, so so one of their more demand over here was that these unfair tariffs should be abolished, because Indians were being charged huge tariff. So that should be abolished, right? And inquiry should be made into the poverty of India. Poverty and famines should be controlled, and people should be compensated, and and guilty should be punished that ways. Okay, and in fact, when Dadabhai Naoroji gave his document Poverty and Un-British Rule in India, it was documented and published by Dadabhai Naoroji, but this was also advanced by Congress. Congress supported this document. So this is how the things were, right? And then that's how they did. Okay, and their main method of working, how was Congress working, what was their working methodology? Their working methodology basically included passing of resolutions and petitions to the government in England. That is what do you do these days? Okay, let me ask you, so many people in India keep on saying there is so much of problem in India. So, and many of us, what do? We write articles in newspapers, we write the letters to Narendra Modi, ki sir, this is what you are doing is not right, this is wrong, this is right. So many people have written to Smriti Irani. Some of people get violent. Okay, now what do you think? See, why how is violence suppressed these days? It is violence is suppressed. How is that suppressed? With the use of police, not army, but Britishers could use army, and then bureaucracy. Okay, and or by use of money. Okay, or by division of society. So this is what Britishers did. If all these things are suppressed, one day you have some party supporting BJP, some other day they did not. There is division. Division is created. Somebody supporting Congress, next day is supporting somebody else. Lalu Prasad joins Nitish Kumar. So please, understand that what is happening is that all the violent protesters, they are suppressed. So what is the solution today? Resolutions and petitions. This is what is happening today. Okay. So, but when there will be realization that even this will not work. That is why we'll move to next step, which is done by Gandhi. Gandhi takes it to a different level, moving beyond the politics of resolutions and petitions. And then there was also a role of revolutionary terrorists. Or the so-called Britishers would call them revolutionary terrorists, right? So that's how it is. Okay. So Okay, now there is one important fact over here before I end the lecture, and this is about that when the Congress, when the Congress was formed, okay, when the Congress is formed, its secretary, who is its secretary? It's not the Congress secretary, the secretary of the British government in India. He is the Earl of Kimberley. Okay, this question has been asked in paper, so that's why I'm just discussing it, right? So whenever the Congress is formed, the secretary is the Earl of Kimberley. Okay, and after this, when the Congress met for the first time, right, and the first meeting, then the secretary of the state for India, he was Randolph Churchill. Randolph Churchill. Okay, and then after this he was there for here for a few months, like 6 months. Okay, and after this Kimberley comes back. Okay, this just might be asked in your paper, who's the secretary at this time, because there's sudden change over here. That is why I'm just sharing this with you. Okay, so you see, there were like a lot of pamphlets at this time appeared. So they were opposing Britishers, right? Now Britishers took Congress very lightly at this time. So Britishers took Congress very lightly. Okay, they took Congress lightly. Why? Because they thought, oh, what are these going to do? We can be guarding. What the hell can they do to us? We are the great Britishers. So Congress says, okay. They come up with various things. For example, they come up with a pamphlet called The Rising India. Okay, The Rising India. And then, then there is another pamphlet which is called An Old Man's Home. So they keep on coming with the resolution and the petitions and the pamphlets, and now Britishers are realizing that if they are not suppressed, if they are not nipped in the bud itself, then there would be an issue. So though initially they called Congress as a microscopic minority. They called Congress as a microscopic minority. But then what later happens is that they realize that this is not happening and something has to be done to control the Congress. Okay. In fact, during the fourth session of the Congress, right, that was the meeting at Allahabad, when it was there, what was happening, that government servants were not allowed to take part in the meeting. So at the meeting of Allahabad, the government servants, because they were essentially Indians, many of them, the government servants were not allowed to take part in the meeting of Congress. So this was the first British reaction to the Congress. Okay, obviously there were little small many reactions before this, because this is like much later, right? This is the fourth session, not the first session. And meanwhile, other things also happened, but this is the first major thing that happened. So this was the beginning of the movement of independence for India. Now I leave it to you to realize or analyze or critically comment. Okay, you can actually critically comment in the comment section below that if you really think that Congress had some role or Congress had no role. Okay, obviously I'm not talking about today's Congress. Don't even bother to discuss that. Okay, so the Indian National Congress of that time, of the pre-independence era, did it have any role in achievement of independence of India, right? And do you think what is true, what is safety valve theory is true, or lightning conductor theory is true, whatever is true, right? Your views on that, I would be like happy to listen to them. Okay, and so I'll just leave you with two more things. Okay, the one thing is about the agenda of the Congress. The broader agenda of the Congress remained these things: to arouse the national feelings. To arouse national feelings. Number two, right, to bring people into sphere of politics, because Congress was having how many members? To bring the people into sphere of politics, right? Number three was, public interest in political question should be raised. So public interest in politics should be raised, and unite the India into one organization, one country, because weld the India, because the process of making of India was going on. Okay, and and all this is done by the creating public interest in political question and organization of public opinion, and spreading at all India level. This is what the Congress is doing at this time. Okay, so I'll end the lecture here, and like always I'll end this with just a humble request. If you like this lecture, you can always share this lecture. I would be grateful to you for that. You can share, or you can click on the like button, right? And second thing is, if you want these videos to come directly into your mailbox, then you can always click on this subscribe button over here, right? This button over here. So if you click on this, mail that will be directly there in your mailbox. So that is all, and thank you so much for watching this.